Hello, my name's Keith Warburton. I'm CEO of Global Business Culture, and today I have with me my colleague Mark Mortimer, who is a China expert, having lived and worked in China for a number of years. And today we're going to be talking about why cultural awareness is critical when you're working with colleagues, clients, or suppliers in China. So thanks for joining me today, Mark.
Pleasure.
And I just want to start off by asking you, in your opinion, why you think understanding Chinese business culture and being culturally aware is really important these days if you're working with China.
Well, so many people are working with China these days, whether it's buying, selling, or in partnerships. And having that cultural awareness, that understanding really matters because success is about the people you're working with and how you interact with the people and the relationships you develop with the people, not just about the products and the service. So it's fundamental when you're working with Chinese counterparts.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously we get lots and lots of inquiries from clients and potential clients asking us to help them with gaining more cultural awareness, cross-cultural knowledge on China. And very often one of the things that they ask us to start with, one of the areas where they see challenge is around communication with China.
Mhm.
So, in your experience,
Sure.
what would you say are some of the challenges from a communication perspective working with China?
You definitely have to change your mindset in terms of how you communicate and your understanding. We're very direct in our communication, but Chinese business communication tends to be very indirect. You don't often get a clear answer, whether that be a yes or a no. You'll get something you have to read between the lines in. So it's important that you give a lot of thought to what you're hearing, and if you're not clear on what that meaning is, go back and try and some more clarification on the answer. But in essence, it's indirect, and it doesn't always mean what you hear doesn't always necessarily mean what you think.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. And I think to a certain extent, the way in which people communicate could be related to concepts of hierarchy in China. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the influence of hierarchy within Chinese business culture, how that might impact on decision-making processes, etc.
It has a huge impact on decision making processes. And again, it's something that we're just not used to dealing with in the West. Is that decision making process? You and me and many other people were used to having a level of autonomy where we can make a decision in a meeting. In China, it's totally different. Very few people have autonomy to make a decision, and everything has to go up the chain to the boss and the boss's boss, and the answer has to come down. And that reflects itself often in meeting environments where we want a quick decision from somebody, and we can't get a quick decision because they need to get authority from somebody higher up the hierarchy. And that's a little bit ties in with the communication because people don't want to give a clear answer because they can't give a clear answer until they're given the information by somebody higher up the hierarchy in the chain. So fundamental, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because I think people often feel that Chinese are being evasive for some kind of negative reasons, but it's really linked to the way in which the structures in the organizations work, isn't
It,
it?
it, it took me quite a while to realise that. You just thought people were being vague or obstructive, and it wasn't in essence. It's that they just didn't have the authority to give you a clear answer, and that
Yeah.
became apparent in later meetings. So,
Yeah. So could you give us an example of what you could call a friction point, a typical friction point where Western business people are dealing with Chinese counterparts?
I think what I just mentioned would be one of them, really, in meetings, in getting decisions, people moving projects forward, the speed at which things are done. Very often we look at it from our cultural perspective. We want quick answers, quick decisions, and we want the project to move forward. If you look at the Chinese business culture, we start from everybody's going to do the same. So if you go into a meeting again, for example, and you have the project timelines and everything there, we want agreement, and we don't get an agreement. We have to go away and have another meeting, and that is a big friction point. Things come together at the end, but we want instant information, and the Chinese are not able to provide instant information in most cases, and that really just cause friction and frustration with many Chinese people, Western companies I've worked with working in China.
Yeah, and we want instant feedback and direct discussion in meetings, and very often you don't get that
Well,
because
we
those.
want that, and you sit around the table in a meeting with the Chinese, and you want to discuss a particular problem, not necessarily a timeline, and you just can't get any clear answers from people as to what what they're going to do about the problem,
Hmm,
because people are too concerned about giving information they shouldn't give. So they will say various things that are rather meaningless again until they've been able to go away and get the authority to share the information with you. And that's incredibly frustrating when you know there's a problem and
yeah.
they know there's a problem, but you sit in the meeting and you can't actually discuss the problem. So,
Yeah, I know, and you need patience, and patience is often in short supply in the West. So finally, if you could give one piece of practical advice to people who are working with China, I know this is a difficult question, but what would one piece of practical advice be?
am I allowed to give two? Very
You
short.
can give two, yeah, yeah,
Give two.
you can give two.
I mean, the first thing is, do build those relationships at the beginning. Within China business culture, having a relationship with somebody is important. So if you get dinner invitations, if you get lunch invitations, accept them. Certainly at the very beginning of a relationship. If you're offered a gift, take that relationship. And the final piece of advice, which ties into some of the other points we've discussed, is always check understanding of things. If you have communication that you think is ambiguous and it's not clear, go back and put something in writing and check it from a written perspective and ask them to confirm in writing as well. Don't always rely on the verbal communications for reasons we've discussed. Yeah,
Okay, so thanks very much, Mark. Now, we've had a very brief discussion about these issues, and this is a massive topic, how cultural awareness can help you with your dealings with China. And I think what we'll probably do, Mark, is we'll probably come back and do some more of these discussions and drive into some of these issues in a lot
sure.
more detail. So thanks very much for your time today, Mark.
Yep, no problem at all. Pleasure.